Some of my very favorite products from DIY are my Bohemian Brights. I'm going to tell you about those here in just a minute. First, I'm base coating my buffet with Kissing Booth and Cowgirl Coral. I'm adding them to my brush, at the same time loading them onto my palette. I'm wetting down the finish just a little bit, lightly misting it with my Water Girl, and the Caddy brush is also a product from Paint Pixie. The next thing I'm going to do is use press and seal and roll it around on my brayer. You're going to see that here in just 1 second. I'm also getting out our making powders. These are beautiful, bold pigments, sprinkling it on my palette, and then adding the Bohemian Bright color called Wandering Heart. It's the turquoise, kind of a minty green. That with the Elixir Pigment, Wandering Heart Bohemian Bright, rolling the press and seal wrapped around the brayer creates this gorgeous texture. Look right here. It makes you kind of go, wait, what? But this is just the first layer. Then we're going to actually roll gold. It's not gold. I think I used copper now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, this is our Pennies from Heaven, and this is copper, and I'm doing the exact same thing after I did the blue. Just grabbed a fresh new piece of press and seal. There's also a color called Spirited, and I added that in there with the copper as well. Then I have another brush called the Buffy.
Okay, so if you don't mind a little sweat, let's go over what I've been doing in the video. So I base coated with two of my favorite colors, Kissing Booth and Cowgirl Coral. Loaded them onto my brush. At the same time, easy blending, wet my brush, wet the colors on the tray, and then used my Caddy brush from Paint Pixie, loaded them up, and base coated the entire piece within about 30 minutes. The next thing I did, I used our Elixir Pigments. It's a powder pigment with Wandering Heart. It's our Bohemian Bright in this delicious kind of a minty turquoise color. And then I took a brayer. It's my favorite from IOD. And I take my press and seal, wrap it around there, and create this yummy texture. And then that's the point where you kind of go, wait, what is she doing? Don't worry. The more you add, which then we took copper, which is Pennies from Heaven, and we mix that with our chartreuse color called Spirited. And we have this wonderful, beautiful texture. Now we're not anywhere near finished, but we rolled that on our brayer as well with the press and seal. So with the Bohemians having a top coat in them, you get a totally different texture. And when you mix it with the pigments, we're still a mess. We're still in the stage, what in the world's going on right now? But don't worry. Then I took our pigment called Pool Party, and I went back to my Wandering Heart, and I mixed those two together, used my Buffy brush from Paint Pixie, and worked that color in, creating shadows. That together creates a really customized finish that is not finished, but stay tuned, we have a whole lot more coming.
So this is the fourth layer, but as you can see, they're just done in easy, simple steps. You're building upon, and I'm just basically repeating the process. A little bit more on one side, a little bit less here, and the adored chaos is that gorgeous red you're seeing me apply now. That was kind of like a pop, but too much of it would have been covering the entire piece, so I just used it very sparingly. I'm touching up a few of the areas that didn't, the sides weren't really large enough for me to roll the brayer on.
Yes, take a look. What? This is the pigments and the Bohemian Brights from DIY Paint. We used our brayer, we used our press and seal, and we rolled that color on there. Doesn't it look like a delicious type of foil? The only thing I need next is my black wax. DIY Paint makes the best waxes. I'm not kidding, like when you try it, you'll see exactly what I mean. But even if you don't try it, you take my word for it. All right, it's time for our wax. I'm going to use the black from DIY. It's really soft, so a little goes a long way. Really, a little goes a long way. I have a brush that I use just for black and brown. I really don't use brown very much. So the goal is, I'm really going to tone this down just a little bit. So right now the color is really, really bold and popping. I don't want it to not be bold or really full of color, but if I can add another layer of texture. So I'll take the black, I'll go around the edges, I'll bring some in here, I'll bring some up here, and all around to give it a old world, but still bright colored. Are we really gonna be able to pull this off? Let's see.
One thing to remember about the wax is once you get it on your brush, you're going to need to dab it onto something. You don't want to apply your brush with a big chunk of black wax. That will be really hard to remove. So put it on the brush and then tap it onto a drop cloth or some sort of rag nearby. I basically went over all of the areas where I had applied the turquoise combination and just kind of brought it down a notch, created more contrast, and I feel like it really leveled up my game. Consider where your lowlights are and your highlights. So your lowlights and highlights are going to create more contrast. So don't feel like each door and each drawer needs to look identical. That's not how furniture will naturally wear. So use your imagination, play with it, and remember that it's just paint. The making powders and the Bohemian Brights are a perfect creative pairing. I hope that you will try them. Tag me if you do, let me know, and I would love to share your work as well on my own page.